From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay.
I love old stuff. It's in the ground and old, I want it.
Looking for a little history under the farm. See what one man is finding.
You have to think very hard about what the return is to those inputs.
An important survey looking toward the future when it comes to farm income. And producers preparing for what could be round 2 of devastating flooding in the heartland.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Winter apparently not done just yet. A strong storm expected to push through the plains starting tomorrow, bringing potential blizzard conditions and possibly more flooding. Meteorologist Cindy Clausen is tracking it. Cindy, the setup of this storm is similar to last month's bomb cyclone, and it could cross through nearly the same area hit by flooding last month.
Yeah, this is definitely another big one that we're going to be really keeping an eye on. And here's the setup as we take a look at how things are. We've got plenty of moisture coming up from the south, and that's where we're going to see that warm sector, really warm air in the southern plains. To the southwest, we have some strong jet energy coming in, really helping to give that storm some dynamic motion there. We've got the cold air coming in from the north, all of those coming into play with that strong low pressure system that will eventually be moving through the northern plains and then to the upper Midwest. Yeah, that's going to bring a fair amount of snow and some heavy rain to some spots. This is what it's going to look like as we get to Wednesday evening. So this is kind of a little bit look into the future, but this is a similar setup to what we had, and it's going to be a messy one for a lot of folks. Let's take a look at our wind forecast, because that's going to be another factor with this storm, as we're going to be seeing some fairly strong winds across especially the plains states as we head into especially our Wednesday. So this is what it looks like as we head through the day. Today it's going to be more so the Great Lakes, and you can see those winds starting to build out into the west, especially the southwest. And then as we head into the overnight hours, winds start building more in the plains as that low pressure system continues to pick up some of that steam. It really continues to deepen. And as we head through the day on Wednesday, look at that. Most of the western 2/3 of the country will be on the windy side. Stay tuned. We'll have more on your national forecast coming up in just a few minutes. Clinton.
Meanwhile, flooding issues continue. These photos taken of the Riverside Dam along the Red River in Grand Forks, North Dakota. And you can see the problem right away. Ice jams on the river. The area already primed for flooding since the saturated and frozen ground prevents the ground from absorbing more rain. Well, a few bridges in and around Grand Forks closed right now due to the rising water levels. The Red River expected to crest Friday or Saturday. And we're still adding up the totals from last month's storm. AccuWeather now saying the damage totals $12.5 billion. It says it based that on an analysis of the damage, what could happen with additional flooding, and the health effects and disease caused by standing water. That estimate would compare to the damage totals from Hurricanes Matthew and Irene. The flooding continuing to hit the ethanol industry. Reuters reporting ethanol shortages are pushing gas prices in portions of California to the highest in the nation. GasBuddy.com saying prices could reach $4 a gallon there for the first time since 2014. The ethanol industry has been hit by water issues around the Chicago hub that has stopped barges and sales. It's believed the flood knocked out 13% of ethanol capacity. Trade talks between the U.S. and China expected to continue this week via teleconferences. Now, last week, President Trump announced, quote, "We are rounding the turn with China." It followed 3 days of talks with China's vice premier in Washington. China's official news agency saying those talks achieved new progress, also saying remaining issues will be handled through various effective means. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders saying in a statement, significant work remains and the two sides would be in continuous contact. China's news agency reporting the latest talks dealt with issues including technology transfer, intellectual property rights protection, non-tariff measures, agriculture, and enforcement. China is continuing to confirm new cases of African swine fever, this time in the Xinjiang region. That's in the northwest part of the country. We're told the disease killed 39 animals on a farm of 341 pigs. China's Ministry of Agriculture also reporting the first outbreak of the disease in the country's Tibet Autonomous Region, killing 55 pigs there. And China has reported well over 100 outbreaks of the disease since last August. A new measure of net farm income isn't so optimistic about growth over the next decade. Missouri's Food and Agricultural Policy Research Institute spent Monday in Washington, D.C. sharing their findings with Congress. The 10-year look into the future helps economists across the industry set a baseline for projections. Well, this year, FAPRI says they do expect net farm income to increase in 2019, but remain below the 2014 to 2017 year averages. Long term, the outlook suggests real net farm income remains stagnant over the next decade, resulting in rising debt-to-asset ratios.
But as you think about the inputs you want to use, whether it's a livestock producer or a crop producer, you have to think very hard about what the return is to those inputs. And those that are able to do this the most efficiently are the ones that are likely going to survive in what's going to be a tough financial situation. I guess as I look forward, I think we're going to continue to see more financial pain as we go through 2019.
Soybean prices are expected to remain below $9 per bushel. Corn prices, they're forecast to increase slightly. Wheat, neutral, while cotton and livestock expected to remain lower. Now, Brown says it's important to remember that trade matters, and given the uncertainty of exports, these baselines calculated off of February data could change, pushing prices much higher or much lower than these reported averages. New crop progress numbers are out. Let's begin with corn. 2% of states reporting they've started planting. That's on par with the 5-year average. Texas reporting it's 53% planted. Now checking on cotton, 6% is in the ground, slightly ahead of the 5-year average. And winter wheat conditions, 60% of the crop reported good to excellent. That's 4 points better than last week and significantly better than last year. Producers in Brazil in the middle of their harvest, but there are concerns about what a major bridge collapse could mean for moving product. Take a look. Authorities in Brazil said a ferry boat collided with a bridge pillar in Brazil's Amazon region on Saturday and knocked 2 cars into the Moju River, cutting a highway to one of the country's busiest ports for major grain unloaders. Reuters reporting that a Brazilian logistics company says the collapse will have no impact on its operations. Barge traffic will also not be affected. Now there's an event that's going on tomorrow and you don't need to leave your home. And the best part, it's free. Farm Journal is hosting a webinar on Wednesday where you can hear from the lead offering manager of agribusiness solutions at the Weather Company. He'll talk about the digital end of farming, about how artificial intelligence in the field can help meet increasing consumer demands. The webinar kicks off at 1 o'clock Central Time. To sign up, head to agday.com. You can click on the link there. Still to come today on Ag Day, getting a handle on the market impacts of all that flooding. We'll talk livestock next in analysis. And later, uncovering history on the farm, but looking underneath it in the country.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. Ag Day, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
Not much movement in the markets on Monday. Investors watching what the weather and Chinese trade talks will mean in the future. Here's more now from Sydney.
Today in the grain market, we'll start with soybeans. Soybeans was a little bit higher today, not that much, but the USDA report is coming tomorrow, and so everyone is kind of like wringing their hands trying to figure out what this report's going to show us. We do know that right now Brazil beans are still less expensive for China, and so we know that they're going to continue to go there as we get closer and closer to our own planting seasons, and we still continue to try to look for something positive to give a lift to our futures. Corn was steady today. The funds there are adding to the short position, which is actually kind of odd, and that's why I mentioned that. They already have a short position, and this is a strange time of year to be short, but to add to it just tells me that they don't expect the market to continue to rally or to really get a big lift. Wheat was kind of firm today too, but the weather is the #1 issue. We're expecting a big blizzard at the end of this week. I think that may hurt some of the winter wheat right now, as well as try to kind of create a little bit of havoc with logistics about how we're going to be able to get some of these row crops in the ground, and then maybe there's going to be some juxtaposition as to where the acres are going to go. Are they going to go from corn to beans or beans to corn? And we're going to be watching for that closely.
Livestock producers are still adding up the totals when it comes to losses they suffered in the flooding last month. We get some insight on what that means for supply and demand in today's analysis with Tyne Morgan.
Here now with Don Close of Rabo Agri-Finance. Don, you know, when we talk about the blizzard and we talk about the flooding recently in the northern plains, a lot of question marks around how that's impacting the herd size here in the U.S. I mean, do you think at this point it's being overstated?
I have to say yes. I think there were some estimates put out right after, during the event that looked to be way inflated. And then we start looking about, okay, so with the Iowa and Nebraska, where were the real losses occurred? And from conversations I've had, it sounds like there was more loss of new calves in the western half of the state with the blizzard side of that storm than there was from the flood damage and more yearlings and fed cattle loss in the east side. So I think even when we get down and have a better handle on what the actual head count number is, we'll see that it's way more influence in the western half of Nebraska.
But even when those numbers roll in, you still anticipate the herd size in the U.S. to grow in 2019?
We're so close on the bubble with cow. If you take the growth curve we've had since the 2014 low, I would have to give an answer that yes, I still think that cattle inventory numbers are growing. But it's the growth we see from here is going to be really, really flat compared to the growth we've had in the last 3 years.
What could hinder that growth this year, do you think?
I think we're pretty well on track, and it's just because as we have rebuilt all weight classes of cattle, we built that supply of cattle outside of feed yards. You know, if we were to really see a slowdown in the economy, that would have some impact. But you'd think the counter side of that, this export picture looks so bright, particularly with the uncertainties with China. It just looks like that demand for global protein is going to be there.
Okay, that is the hope, right? That
Yes.
it continues, and we need that to continue at this point.
We need to see that growth. Yes.
All right, Don, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll have much more right here on Ag Day.
Join Andrew McRae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast that is all about production agriculture. Farming the Countryside is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and is brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, the world's largest provider of crop inputs and services.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Your meteorologist, Cindy Clausen. Now, Cindy, it may be spring on paper, but
Yes.
Mother Nature has another idea this week.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not unusual to see snow in April, especially in the northern parts of the country. But it's something that we have to live with whether we like it or not. So here's how things are shaping up. The main system we're going to watch is going to be coming out of the Rockies, but we also have a couple other features to keep an eye on. We'll have a low pressure system in the southeast that's going to bring showers and thunderstorms to that part of the country. We have low pressure that's going to be moving through the northeast, so look for some rain and even a little bit of snow there as well. But this is going to be our big weather maker as we see that low start to take a dive into the northern plains. We're going to see in the Rockies some rain and higher elevation snow. The snow will continue in parts of the northeast, but some rain there as well with rain in the southeast. Fairly dry in the southern plains though for a day or so, but we're going to see things starting to moisten up as we get into the middle part of the week. Here's Wednesday morning. You can see that snow really picking up, especially as you get into the western parts of South Dakota into the Rockies. And notice we're going to see some rain on the southern part of this area, and this could be some fairly heavy rain as well. In fact, as we get into Wednesday, might even have some severe weather in this area, especially around Omaha, northern Kansas as well. As we head through the day on Wednesday, you'll see everything kind of track slowly to the southeast, and you'll see kind of a mixture of rain and snow as you get up towards the Great Lakes area, but we'll still see a fair amount of snow in South Dakota into Nebraska, and everything just continues to push on off to the east as we get into the next couple of days. So we're looking at the potential for some heavier rain and some heavier snow. It's been the southeast over the past 24 hours, as well as parts of the west that have seen a fair amount of moisture with several areas well over an inch. But as we put this into motion, we're going to really start to see things picking up with that storm system that continues to develop into the Plains states. As far as snowfall, most of it's been in New England over the past 24 hours, but watch as we add the next 24 hours and really see this blossom in parts of the northern Rockies and then heading into the northern plains as well. Take a look at these temperatures though. We are well into the 80s in parts of the southern plains, the cooler air, but it's not cold by any stretch of the imagination today. In the 50s up into Minneapolis, but 30 up in Sault Ste. Marie. Heading into the overnight hours we go, and we're going to see those low temperatures in the 20s and 30s across a lot of the northern tier of states. Really mild though in that warm sector with a lot of 60s for overnight lows there. And then as we head into tomorrow, big drop on the northern side of those temperatures as we see those highs only in 20s and 30s in the Dakotas, but look how we still have those 80s down into parts of the southern plains. Quick look at the jet stream. We're going to see that cutoff low that's going to be bringing in that good jet energy, so that's going to be translating across the U.S. We'll start to see things warming back up again on the back side of that over this weekend, but another trough comes into the western U.S. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Glendive, Montana, breezy and cooler for you today with some rain and a high of 51 degrees. Antlers, Oklahoma, sunny and very warm with a high of 84 degrees. And Silver Street, South Carolina, showers and thunderstorms, high of 77.
It's been a problem lately. Too much milk, not enough demand. But that could be changing. A look at the reasons why, next. New numbers show the gap between supply and demand when it comes to milk has closed a little bit. Global milk equivalent exports were up 9.4% over last year in January and up 8.8% in February. Experts say demand will be driven by what happens with China over the next few months. Poor weather in New Zealand, Australia, and Argentina over the winter hurt production. And Farm Journal's milk business says it looks like March and April production in those countries will lag behind last year's production over the same period. The Dairy Checkoff program continuing to show a return for producers. That's according to an independent study done by Texas A&M. It was released by USDA. Now it shows a cost-benefit ratio of $4.78 of return for every dollar invested in promotion. The results look at 2016 numbers. Dairy Checkoff programs collected a total of $415 million from dairy farmers, importers, and consumers. Now on a product basis, fluid milk says $4.11 worth of benefits, cheese $4.81, and for butter a whopping $22.74. Family farms are full of history. Many have been in the same family for generations. But what's under all that land? One man is on a mission to find some answers next in the country.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
No doubt each acre of farmland is covered in history. However, our videographer Russ Natusco introduces us to a man who loves to go searching for clues to the past below ground in upstate Indiana.
I'm Gary Cornwell. I'm a treasure hunter. I love old stuff. If it's in the ground and old, I want it. This hasn't been lived on for 100 years. There's no aluminum out here. There's no, recent trash. And since what we're looking for is old stuff, you can kind of be guaranteed that you're going to find nothing but. We're looking for anything that shows, that can tell us anything about the people that lived here, whether they had kids, whether they were wealthy, whether they weren't. There's a lot of things that we find interesting that you can find in the ground that show us these things. Anything metallic is going to tell us a story. Along the way, I've dug just about everything out of the ground you can imagine. It looks like possibly a base to some kind of a hand tool that maybe a wood shaft went up into. And seriously old. That's got to be 1890s or so probably. I'll throw it in there. There's just about everything under the sun in there. There's a cowbell. You can never have too much cowbell. Oh, all kinds of good stuff ends up in the purview.
How?
So that was their trash dump. That was their garbage can back in the day, In 1870, there was no dump. They say dig it all and you'll make sure you get it all. This is a Winchester, probably from the teens or 20s maybe. I've always been a kind of a treasure hunter, even since I was a little kid. And so it just one thing led to another, and it progressed to where I'm at now. You know, how far can you cover in 15 minutes if you're in somebody's yard or something like that? You could cover a lot of ground, especially with a great big coil. It is the great possibility that exists, like a scratch-off ticket. When you look at a piece of ground, you don't know what's there until you go over it, and it could be anything.
What a pretty cool find. And that's going to wrap us up for this edition of Ag Day. I'm Clinton Griffiths. Hope everyone out there has a great day out in farm country.